Hello, everyone out there in podcast world. Hope you're having a great day. You're listening to or watching the Service Business Mastery podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Tersh Blissett, and sitting next to my co-host, Joshua Crouch.
And daddy. It says on my headline, I'm your daddy.
Oh, yeah. I got to love this.
For the last two episodes, like StreamYard, the platform we use, has allowed us to put headlines and titles with our name, which is a first for us. So we are having some fun with the title of what we do.
Yeah. So on today's episode, I'm super excited. If you are in the skilled trades, if you do HVAC, plumbing, electrical, roofing, anything considered skilled trades, we are talking with Chris Lalini with Reputation Igniter. And we're going to talk about digital marketing. Well, I'm not really. Josh and Chris are probably going to talk about digital marketing. Well, mainly the conversation is about keeping it simple. And we tend to, as business owners, overcomplicate things when it comes to marketing. And we want to, test this, test that. And we oftentimes are overlooking the simple things that we can be doing. And the things that I know for me, when things are working perfectly, I just stop doing them. I don't know why. I just like, all right, things are working great. Let's add this other complicated thing and let's forget about this other thing that was making us money. So we're going to talk about things like that, little things that you need to be doing as a business with local business, Google Business Profile.
Good job, Church.
Yeah, and
good job.
And reviews and that kind of thing. So, Josh, you want to add anything to that?
No, you did such a fantastic job. I have nothing else to say.
Good. You just be quiet the rest of the interview.
Are you looking for valuable business advice to reach that 7-figure revenue mark? Do you want actionable tips to properly navigate through every business challenge you encounter along the way? Let Tersh Blissett and Josh Crouch be your guide in getting you to the top here at Service Business Mastery. Tune in as they sit down with world-renowned authors in business, leadership, and personal growth who share valuable insights about management, marketing, pricing, human resources, and so much more. Let their nuggets of wisdom gold guide you in owning a thriving, profitable, and ever-growing business. Here are your hosts, Tersh and Josh.
Welcome to the show, Chris.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. So for those who don't know you and don't know Reputation Igniter, can you share a little bit your background and everything you have going on and your podcast too?
Sure, man. I appreciate that. We'll do the Reader's Digest version. I was fortunate enough to be in the Navy and to serve in the nuclear community. That's where I kind of eventually got my passion, I would say, for HVAC, being a reactor mechanical division officer on board the USS Ronald Reagan. And, I came out and was working actually in the shipyards up in Washington, building the Washington State ferries as a project engineer on the Tokatee or the Samish. So if you've ever ridden either one of those, it's a little bit of my handiwork there. And I started a digital marketing company 2 months after I had started.
How did you transition from doing that to digital marketing?
Well, so, all right. So we'll rewind a little bit. My brother had been trying to get me to read Rich Dad Poor Dad for 7 years. And I finally relented between my 2 years of grad school, did this whole 40 days, 40 nights trip to the Far East, went through China, Tibet, India, Nepal.
Whoa,
and
cool.
yeah, it was a life-changing trip with my buddy Riley. And I read that. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and read 4 Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
That's a thick book right there.
Dude, it changed my life. I was like, what am I doing? I was going to be a company man. I was going to probably serve 20 years in the United States Navy. And I was like, I've made a terrible mistake. I just signed on for 7 years, because coming out of the academy, 05, but I did the nuke pipeline. So your timer doesn't start until you start your nuke tour. And so I was all freaking out and I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure this out. I'll make the best of it. Anyways, came back, was starting all these different little online businesses that I could. But the problem was when you go out to sea, on a Navy ship, like your internet speed is dial up. It's like 14 bits per second, right? So like
Right,
everything that I would create online would essentially disintegrate because I go on these 9 months deployments, right? And you know, it's a satellite, right? Like you could literally see the satellite, you know, up on the thing, and it would just be shaking as it's trying to find the dish. Anyways, long story short, I kind of fell in love with marketing, but I didn't like the woo woo, like branding stuff, colored. Like I can't figure it out, man. So, you know, all my education was in the engineering field. And so I figured I could engineer systems. And so I kind of came out and I don't know what, I think it's just my dad growing up and kind of like, he eventually became an architect, but he was a carpenter for many, many years. Right. So like kind of that blue collar sort of esque type thing. He built, you know, our kitchen table, he built the walls at our house. Like he built the downstairs, you know, addition,
just
everything
love
like
working
that.
with his hands.
Yeah, man. And I respected the hell out of that. I can't do any of that stuff. Right. And
Oh,
so
well, that
it's
might
one
be a
of those
digital marketing
things.
thing.
Yeah.
If you can't do shit with your hands, you do digital marketing. Apparently, is what the point
Exactly,
of this
right?
podcast
It's
is all
like
about.
what is it? Those who can't do teach, right? So, you know, that's kind of the transition here. But yeah, so wanted to do something, liked digital marketing. And then I just kind of realized, or I kind of came into contact with more and more of these like home service guys who just like, you know, their trades are typically evolving so fast that like, it's hard to just like stay on top of your trade, be relevant, have the like newest techniques and technology and all that stuff integrated in your business, and then go and learn digital marketing. Back in 2013, digital marketing was like really, really simple. There was like 3 levers that you could pull, right? And now today there's like 120 and they invent 2 more every month, right? So like these poor guys are just, they're a one-legged man at a, you know, butt kicking contest, and they can't win, right? And you know, no fault to us, like, or no, you know, we're not helping them. So long story short, I found a gap where I could be kind of like the quarterback for a lot of their marketing. So for a couple $100, and I way underpriced my services, I would kind of quarterback the marketing that they were doing, whether it was like digital, print, or whatever. Did that for about 2.5 years. Stressed myself the heck out because I was doing it.
I mean, I know the term fractional when it comes to C-suite positions has been a lot more popular over the last 4 or 5 years, but it's kind of like a fractional position. That's kind of what you did.
Yeah, Josh, actually, I invented the term fractional CMO. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't know. But yes, like looking back on it, that's what I kind of was. But I just realized it was like too much. And of course, like if you've got a good partner, my wife, you know, and just some, you know, errant offhanded comment was like, why don't you just make something that's a little bit more productized and something a little bit easier to kind of like wrap your head around? It took me 6 months to get it through my thick skull. Like, yeah, why don't you do that? Right. And so I was prepping for a BNI, like 8-minute, 10-minute presentation or whatever. And was just going over the data from my clients' recent successes over the last 2.5 years, and literally rebranded my company like overnight to Reputation Igniter, and just solely focused on generating and driving reviews for my clients. And so that was like literally all I'd been doing for the last for about 7.5 years. And then what happened is just like with the constant like evolution of the search engines, right? And just Google like kind of finally figuring out how to like rank local a little bit more effective. Like the reviews piece wasn't like it wasn't the everything that you could do on Google, right? And so just watching a lot of my clients like kind of slip and them asking me, you know, because we'd had relationships for 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, I literally have a painter client. I think he was either number 1 or number 2 client. The dude still pays me every single month, you know, for my services for 11 plus years now, right? And all that to say is that my clients were demanding more of me. I didn't want to go back to that place where I was doing all this stuff, but I did need to find a solution for helping them rank better locally in Google. And not just like on their webpage, but their Google business profile post. So what I did, and it's just because I'm Navy, I'm all about SEAL Team 6, right? And it's like, so for me, the approach that I've had with my agency as we've evolved here literally this last, couple of years, has been focusing specifically and solely on HVAC. Obviously we have some electrical first and some, plumbing first companies, but they're doing some sort of HVAC, and just focusing on ranking their Google business profile throughout their service area, which is a radically different sort of approach and strategy than it is to just rank a website, right? And so what we're finding, and Josh, I'm sure you can speak to this a lot, right? You probably have a lot of clients who come to you going, I get these SEO reports, I don't understand what it means. Like all I really want is I want jobs on my dispatch board, and like I'm not getting it, right? And so for me, it was just like, how do we simplify marketing? That's why I started my initial company, many years ago. And so, yeah, that was a long story. I tried to Reader Digest version of that, but yeah.
I mean,
so here we are.
Version was thick.
That was
That
a
was
thick
like,
boy.
that was like 4-hour work week thick. I mean,
That's a 4-hour work week is my book in stop. Like it's so thick it stops the rest of my book. So
so they don't tip over.
yeah.
No, it's funny. So, and Chris, we didn't talk about this before, but
Yeah.
I was on the HVAC contractor side for 9 years.
Oh, okay.
I will give you the real quick version of my story because I've got it down pretty good. Worked at 3 different HVAC companies over 9 years. I was in a coaching group that actually Tersh was in. That's how we met in person. And such a dick.
You need the Jeopardy music, man. That's what you need. Is
something
that you don't have that
a
button?
little better than the. He's got all kinds of them. He just always plays that one for me for some reason.
Yeah. Next.
So I started posting tips, like things that were working for us at a local level. And everything I did was GMB, local Facebook groups. Like it was very, very hyper focused.
Yeah.
And that's literally the whole first year on 2020, we started Agents was all local. It's all we did. We didn't touch websites. We didn't touch local service ads. We didn't do any of the other stuff that we do now because I didn't feel like it was talked about a lot. Because back in the day, you could just get, if you were the early bird to get reviews, that was
you could crush it. Yeah.
That was it. And today we do an audit and it's like, well, they got several thousand, there's several hundred. Like there's still a lot of, don't get me wrong, there's probably a majority of companies still don't even have 100.
Yeah.
But it's a lot better than it used to be. But Google definitely does not let you just rank if you have the most reviews anymore.
No.
So okay, so I was going to ask, is that what so having a bunch of 5-star reviews, are you saying it doesn't matter?
No, it definitely does matter, right? And it's a piece of your overall ranking for your Google Business Profile. And I think, like, I'm trying to remember the last survey. It's like usually it's like 15%, right? The one thing, and Josh, you probably can back me up on this, is there's really 4 elements to your reviews that people don't talk about, right? Like obviously your star rating's got to be good. Like when have you gone on Google and searched for like any type of business and found somebody like showing up for like 3.9 stars? You know what I mean? Like you kind of got to have a 4-star plus rating, right? Because Google does
minimum.
Like, let's back up real quick. What is Google's whole purpose? How do they make money? Well, 92% of the search share is on Google. Why? Because they provide the best search results, right? How do you provide the best search result? Well, you provide the best business, the best option, right? Imagine if like 1 out of 3 of the calls that you made on Google were to like a terrible business. Like, would you keep using Google or would you go and like try and struggle with Bing? Like let's let's not do that, right?
I've been using my AOL.
Yeah,
I remember the discs. The AOL discs you used to get and like throw out. Man, and the phones used to be on the walls. Can you believe that, kids?
Right?
No, so there's those 4 things that I was getting to, right? Number 1 is your star rating. Number 2 is your quantity, right? The 2 things I don't think people talk enough about, right, is the recency and then the velocity, right? So like you have to have recent reviews. So like you who are out there maybe still doing this where you literally get your customer lists and every quarter you just blast them with an email and you get like, in 1 month you'll get like, 20 or 30 reviews, right? And you're like, oh, good, glad that's over with, right? Like, and then you go on, like, yeah, it's great. But the problem is like, if those reviews age, right? Like just because you got, 50 reviews 2 years ago, that's not relevant in Google's eyes, right? So like how recent are those reviews, right? Did you get them a day ago? Did you get them a week ago? Did you get them a month ago or a year ago, right? And then velocity, right? Is how frequently are you getting these reviews, right? And what I tell my clients, right, is I'm like, look, you need to be getting multiple reviews a week. Like you should, like at a minimum 1 review, but most likely you should be getting at least 2 reviews. I know you're doing enough calls. You should be getting 2 reviews. If you're not, then we got to look at 2 things. One is the technology that you're using, right? Obviously, that's usually the first thing, right? Is like, hey, is your system automated, right? Because if somebody's manually putting this in, you're putting a task on one of your staff members, it's just not going to get done, right? And then the second thing is like, are you providing good enough quality service that like is worthy of somebody like actually saying something about you, right? Sometimes people think that like just because you fixed it doesn't mean you get 5 stars, right?
So yeah, that's the bare minimum. Like that's what's expected of you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not going above and beyond.
Yeah, I think about that stuff when I go to restaurants or if I go somewhere and I'm like, there's places I'm like, man, this service was really good. Like it actually, I'm like, man, I really should leave them a review. And I don't normally leave a ton of reviews, but I'm like, I will. Certain experiences are so unique and so different. It's like, I'm absolutely going to leave this person a review because I want to do something for them, because my
But
experience
Josh,
was so
how
great.
often do you say that? Even you can say that out loud, but
Yeah.
then the moment you walk out of the door, you're like, completely forgot
Oh yeah.
to do it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
so easy,
But here's the
and
problem.
you
A lot of
want to
these
do
businesses
it,
don't have a way to remind you,
right?
like, because I'll think that in my head, or I'll be like, or talking with Brittany when we get back in the car, man, that was like, this is so awesome. Our waitress or waiter or whoever was, whatever service we were getting provided is really awesome, but they don't remind you. There's no,
Yeah.
you can,
Yeah.
and one, they don't ask in person either.
Yeah.
Most of the
Yeah.
time, they'll put a QR code or something, like you almost have to like search for it to find it.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
they don't put it in front of your face and ask. And then after they ask, they don't follow up with some sort of survey, text message, QR code, whatever they want to follow up with. And then so they lose the opportunity, because there's a lot more people that are happy. We get busy as soon as we open our phone. We're like, even if I was going to go leave a Google review, okay, I'm going to go search the company. Oh, I got a text message. I got a Facebook message. I'm
Yeah.
distracted. Like
Yeah.
it's life. We're so distracted these days. You have to remind them several times. Otherwise it's never going to get done.
Yeah. I mean, and that's like the whole point of it, right? Is it's just like, you have to also make it easy for your customer. Like, they're going out of their way to do something for you, right? That theoretically is now a word of mouth referral online, 24/7, 365, working for you, right? Like, I think also, like, business owners, we just got to get it into our mind is like how impactful like a review is. It's another vote for you. It's another somebody telling their story that could potentially connect with a prospective customer of yours. And so, to your point, dude, you're not going to search for a QR code. Like, you got enough stuff. You're thinking like, hey, did I cover enough of my parking? Like, am I about to go get a parking ticket? Right. Like,
Yeah.
like, oh, how am I going to swing around and get Brittany's? Should we walk to the car, or should she stay here because it's safer? Like, I don't know what the
Mhm.
situation is, obviously depending on what city you're in these days. Right. So it's just like, it's all these little things. Like, why were you're literally putting up roadblocks and hurdles in front of your customer? Like, you got to make it like a downhill slope. You got to make it as easy as possible for them to just hit even if it's just 5 stars, like 5 stars, submit. If that's not easy, I'm not doing it. Right.
So Chris, I got a question for you. So since you've
Yeah.
been really focused on the reputation piece,
Yep.
how do because you're really singularly focused on that for, I think you said 7.5 years.
Yeah.
How do you teach clients to peel back their process or their journey of their customers so they can actually understand all the opportunities that they have? I think that's a difficult thing, because I know I talk about the customer journey quite often, mostly through posts and videos and stuff, but not like one-on-one like you did when you were doing like the CMO stuff. But
Yeah.
how do you peel that back so they, like, the light bulb goes off, like, oh, there is a ton of opportunity right here just by doing the most basic of things?
Yeah. So that's a great question, Josh. So one of the things I have to get them to understand is, like, it isn't a singular event, right? Like, you don't just like send this thing out and then automatically people give you the reviews, right? You have to look like you're talking about through the touch points in the journey, right? And it really creates this like virtuous cycle if you do it properly, right? It's like, let's just start. You got a review from somebody. That's awesome. Right. Well, that review is going to be read by somebody. So that person calls your business, right? When they call your business, hopefully you answer the phone and it doesn't go to voicemail. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Right. But you answer the phone, somebody's talking to them, always asking them a simple question. Hey, so how did you find out about us? Right. I mean, like, if nothing else, like, figure out some marketing attribution. Right now, I know you could go like, us marketers could debate this all, day long. It's like, well, you can't really attribute it to any one source. There's multiple touches, all this, that, and the other thing, right? But let them tell you where they feel like they found you, right? And if they found you on Google, that's an easy opening to just go, oh, that's awesome. We're so grateful for all the people that leave a review online. Man, our customers are just the best, right? Well, start to plant that seed inside of that new prospect's mind that, like, hey, we love it when people give us reviews. We appreciate it. We actually tell everybody on the phone that calls us that we are grateful for our customers who leave us reviews. So now they're thinking, oh, wow, okay, the level of customer service these guys deliver obviously, precipitates getting a review, but it also, they reflect and they communicate that to new customers. Then when they show up, right, through that whole process, is making sure that they're good during the process, right? When somebody's knocking on the door and they're talking about, options, or they're troubleshooting something or whatever, right? Just saying, hey, do you have any other questions? How was the experience today? Just getting that feedback, not to jump in and say, hey, can you give us a review, right? But just to create that feedback loop inside the entire experience, so that that feedback feels like it can be openly and freely given. Because I think that's the other thing, is like most of these homeowners they're terrified, right? Like if there's an issue with something, there's like, oh my gosh, how much is this going to cost? And they're just freaking out that you're going to take them to the cleaners. And so I think if you can just reiterate to them, like, it's important that they're providing feedback to you throughout the journey. Like, I think that just opens itself up to, when you create that opening at the end to like leave that anonymous feedback online, that it's easy for them. And, having the tech, not do something aggressive, like in the house. I'm just saying a lot of this HVAC stuff, just because that's kind of the world in which I operate. Right. But like, the tech not sitting there, breathing over their shoulder while they type the review, right? That just feels awkward. And it feels like, it's a weird, sort of that damages your relationship. Let's just be honest. That damages your relationship. So the question is, how are you fostering that relationship? I think saying something to you, what you were just talking about, Josh, is just saying, hey, you might be prompted by our owner, or however you want to kind of phrase it, right? To leave us some feedback. And, I'd obviously appreciate if you gave us your honest opinion. I can always do better as a technician. And, if you want to share something online, that means the world to us. So have a nice day. And, I hope the rest of the day goes well, or whatever, right? You got to kind of plant these seeds so that when they do get that, and it should come in a timely manner. That's the other piece, right? Like, you can't come out like in the HVAC world, you can't come out with a request 2 weeks later. They're going to be like,
oh yeah,
I don't even know who came out. Yeah. Who is that? Right.
Yeah.
Like, I can say, like, with a painter, you could probably get away with a week, because they look at their house, or that room on a regular basis.
Finished.
Yeah. And it's dry, it's finished. It looks good for at least a week. Right. But the HVAC, that's such a visible system, and so anyways, it's just got to be timely, and they got to execute. And then what are you doing to follow up on that? Like, do you respond to every one of your reviews? That's another piece, right? Like, communicate to the customer that it matters, right? And I mean, gosh,
Chris,
this ChatGPT.
Go
ahead.
I had a really fun conversation in a Facebook group this weekend. I pissed somebody off. Tersh is probably familiar with me pissing someone off. It wasn't a big.
Yeah,
I didn't make it a big deal.
A lot.
So I should have asked you this beforehand, so I actually knew your answer.
I gotta go search this Facebook that you're talking about.
I don't even remember which group it was, but it was somebody was asking, like, hey, can I hire someone to like reply to reviews for SEO benefit? And so there's still, I'm trying not to give away my answer by asking you this question, but
sure.
What do you advise people when it comes to review replies? I'll just leave it there.
I mean, so that's a great question. So one of the things I think is, like, first of all, as a business owner, there is very few times that you actually get thanked for the work that you do, right? So like, I personally think, like, yes, you can automate that. Yes, you can get, ChatGPT to write a lot of these responses, right? But I think as a business owner, you should interact with that stuff. If it's negative, give it to your office manager. That's fine, right? Like, if you don't want to deal with negativity. But my feelings, like, why don't you engage with like the positivity, right? Like, you're such a thankless position that we're in as entrepreneurs, that like, it's one time that you can kind of revel in that. The second thing is like, I think responding, obviously heartfelt, right? And I mean, yes, is there opportunity for like SEO? Like, don't go keyword stuffing it. Don't be like, it was awesome to have, repaired or replaced your capacitor in the town of Quincy, Massachusetts, in the neighborhood of Crystal Park, period. We can't wait to repair your AC again as one of the best HVAC companies in the Quincy. Like, I mean, people will do weird.
Who, by the way,
stuff.
also does plumbing and electrical work as well.
Yeah.
If you need
So,
those.
okay. So now that you answered that question, I was having this little more heated discussion. I'm a little opinionated about it, because this guy was like adamant that this is like a big ranking factor.
It's the strategy.
And I'm sitting there and I said, just be a human and answer.
Yeah,
like, that is the only thing people care about. The review replies, to your point, because you mentioned earlier about people reading the reviews, and those how you get your next customers. Well, they also read your replies.
Yeah.
And you get customers from that, because they want to know both good and bad. You're going to take care of them, and you actually give a shit. Try not to swear too much here. But you actually give a shit. If you like I've seen there's services on Fiverr, like keep replying to reviews and stuffing them with keywords. And people think, I actually saw there's an SEO company that's in our space that gave feedback on one of the, it came up multiple times. So I started getting like,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm putting my foot down. I'm going to fucking tell people how this is. Like, this is not true. Stop listening to whoever you're listening to, because replying to reviews is just about customer service. It is not about getting another keyword in there. It's not going to help you rank any better. It's just to show that you're a good quality business. That's it. Like, just, so I wanted to hear your answer first. I didn't want to lead you on to it because
No, it's all good.
I was very animated about it. And Brittany's like, I don't know why you answer that stupid stuff. Like, to me, there's so much misinformation.
100%.
I feel like with all the knowledge like yourself has and the knowledge that I've acquired through just constant research, it's like, you feel like you got to help people because they don't know where to turn. And there's so much bad information out there.
Well, and I think the challenge on top of that, right, is like you and I speak, the marketing jargon. Like, I mean, it's just the vernacular that we use, right? And so to like simplify it in a way that doesn't get like that gets understood but doesn't get written off. Like, oh, like, Josh and Chris just talking like marketing platitudes and all that. Like, I didn't learn anything from those guys, right? But like, you also want to address all these potential rabbit trails that these guys can go down that can just be a total time suck and waste, right? Where this, like you said, this guy's like keyword stuffing his responses. Here's my suggestion in that, right? Why don't you just say thank you for letting us come out to do X job, right? And just like leave it at that. Just and don't even do it from the SEO standpoint. Do it from the standpoint of like, as the business owner, you give enough hoots that you actually went into their file in Service Titan or Sarah or Service Fusion or House Call Pro, right? You look them up to understand who they were, what service you provided, and that you're actually putting that in a personalized reply, as opposed to saying, thanks for the great star review, or thanks for the feedback, Karen. Like, I just
Karen.
You didn't enunciate that one.
There's no passion.
I just want some comments. I just want some comments on your guys's post.
That was great.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So I want to go back. So you talked about like 4 main ranking factors of reviews, and obviously review replies was not one of them.
Yeah.
I want to ask you
drive that home.
I want to have my thoughts on this too. Because obviously, as a marketing company, sometimes we rely on automation to help clients out, because just get them like moving to the right direction. But what advice would you give people? Because we've all seen, whether we know it or realize it or not, when you go and look at reviews, Google always has most relevant selected first, like naturally. So they're trying to figure out, with whatever you put in the search bar, I'm going to try to give you the most relevant review. A lot of times that's reviews with pictures, or they're reviews that look like this. They're a couple paragraphs. Yeah. Is there anything that you have, or advice that you have given to help prompt people to maybe give some coaching to their customers about things that are helpful in those reviews, or something to kind of give some advice there? Because there are ways that we can kind of prompt homeowners to like,
hey, by the way, if you want to give this review, here it is. You can copy and paste it.
I have seen advice about that. I would not recommend that, but I don't know if there's any advice or things that you've talked about in the past, Chris, that could be helpful for the audience as far as prompting customers, just because the better the review, the longer it is, Google likes it. And that's the stuff, that's the stuff that might actually give you some keyword value. But your thoughts on that?
Oh, the great question. So I think a lot of people, when they're using like a service that like we have or you guys have, right, is they get worried about asking for the review like a second time, right? Like, oh, what happens if we ask the people who've already left a review?
My customers
don't want to.
I don't want
to bother them.
And that's what I always initiate, and I go, look, first off, this is not a review solicitation software. This is a feedback system inside your business, so that every time you go out that you actually had a good experience. Now, if you don't have that and you have a bad experience, they probably will never call you again, and you'll never know why. But you can catch this stuff, and you can get ahead of it. If it is negative and they give you that feedback, then you can kind of jump in on that, right? So like, understand it's a feedback loop, and you can just put verbiage in there, and that's what we typically do, right? We'll always kind of like sign off, like, if you've already, written a review, thanks, God, it's been a while since I looked at that, right? But it's like, we appreciate you, or something to that effect, right? In the sense that it's also saying like, hey, we'd love for you to share your experience online so that others can find a trusted HVAC partner like us, right? Kind of, we always make it altruistic. Like, we don't want the review. We want you to give the review so you help the community, right? So I think, again, it's about positioning, right? So that people feel like, hey, compelled to like leave that review for a reason. And then realizing that like you might ask somebody and they'll update the review. And that's a great way. Cause like you said, Josh, like not everybody has the time to write this like life story in the reviews. Very nice. But a lot of people will actually, and we've been seeing this a little bit more, is like when they click on the link and they go, oh, I already wrote these guys a review, I'll just add something else, right? They'll add, first it'll be the fact that you came out for a furnace repair, then it'll be that you came out for an AC tune-up, and then it'll be that you came out for a frozen condensate drainer, whatever the case may be, right? So there's opportunities for that review to grow over the years, and I think that's a great signal to them. And then also your tech can just say something like, hey, if you snap some photos of like what happened, like it's always great to post those online so people get a better idea of like, what we did here kind of thing. Right. So anyways, just one of the many things that I think you can just kind of prompt them with, suggestions like that. Right. So, or take a picture of your new system and post it online. You could also do like little, like spiffs, I guess, too. I just find those kind of like cheesy because most people are willing to do it, if you just ask them. Right. And they feel like you're kind of prostituting them. If you're like, hey, we'll give you a $5 gift card to Starbucks if you take a picture, it's like, oh, I wish you had not said that because I would have done it anyways. But now that you offered it, like I can't do it because I don't want the
I hate Starbucks
money, right? Yeah, and I hate Starbucks.
Besides, $5 can't buy shit at Starbucks. It's like,
dude,
I know you get like half a coffee for $5.
Yeah. Half a drip coffee, yeah, right. Like, it's crazy, man.
Like, give me a $5 coffee, and it's like a little cup. Here you go.
Yeah.
Here's a little cup.
So here's kind of that next thing, right? And Josh, this is what we were talking about before we kind of jumped on here, is right? Like the way that I see it, there's like three key things that you need to kind of have in place, right? So your reviews is number one, right? Like, and the reason is because that's the first litmus test. Like, you get a referral, somebody Googles you because nobody hands out business cards, nobody has the phone number to anybody these days, right? They just Google your business, right? So they Google your business. The question is, how many reviews do you have next to you? Is it enough for them to kind of say, hey, my friend over here, wasn't totally smoking a bunch of weed when they made the recommendation, like this is a good client, right? So they'll call you, right? So you're probably getting your referrals. Okay, well, that's the first level of just having a referral business that generates you business, right? The second piece, and maybe you could argue this is the second or the third, right? But the second one is like, okay, are you visible when people are searching for your type of business online, right? When somebody types in HVAC contractor, right, are they finding you online? Well, that's the next piece, is like your visibility beyond your referrals is your visibility in the Google business profile sort of like category on the search engines, right? So like next time you're in front of a computer, go type in HVAC contractor. Don't even have to put in a city or state or whatever. It's just Google's going to give you the results, right? The top results there are going to be your Google local service ads, Google LSA, Google Guaranteed, right? That's 10% of the clicks along with the pay-per-click that's up there from Google AdWords, right? One's pay-per-call, one's pay-per-click. Then you're going to have your 3 local businesses that are being offered, right? That's where 60% of the clicks go. And then the other 30% go to the websites at the bottom, right? Which is usually Angie's List and Home Advisor. And if somebody's ranking really well, a website with local SEO, they're showing up there. But those are kind of your looky-loos and your price shoppers and like the people that don't have a high buying intent, right? You get the desperate buyers up top that are going to have a one-night stand with your business because they're going to have you come out and fix something. The 60% that are the Google business profile clicks, those are people looking for a long-term relationship with, and obviously HVAC contractor, electrical contractor, whatever service business you are. Those are the people you want, right? So what are you doing to make sure that you're visible there, right? And there's some easy, simple sort of things that we can kind of talk about, Josh, like the 80-20 there. And then the last thing that we were talking about, Josh, it's so important, is like when people call you, you have to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
If you don't pick up the phone, everything is a moot point. So
yeah, I think it's funny because we hear that a lot when we listen to other marketers. We say it a lot to clients, our account managers, our team says it a lot. But look at your report of how many missed or abandoned calls or voicemails that you have. Just look.
The challenge I have is the abandoned calls. I really have a challenge with abandoned calls.
Okay, what's your challenge? Challenge me, because I want to let's shed some light on like what's actually going on.
The classification of an abandoned call.
Okay.
And is it really a lead? Because we call back every abandoned call. So
Sure.
if we miss a call and it's abandoned, I think it's like 15 seconds is considered an abandoned call, which is about the amount of time that our pre-recorded thing says this call may be monitored for training for quality assurance. And then it's like, oh, it's recorded call, and they're on the do not call registry. Hang up. We call the numbers back, and they're like, oh, we never called you. 99% of the time, that's what they say.
Surprised you even get that. It would probably be more like this number is no longer in service.
That too, yeah.
Yeah, I've done that before. That you call back the number, it just called you. This call cannot be connected.
Like,
Yeah.
How did that happen? So
Well, I
that's
love the ones when they're
have
like,
with
I didn't call you. I don't know who you is. And I'm like, lady, I literally have your number. And
like
you
10
called
seconds
me.
ago.
Yeah.
Like,
Just
But
called
what's
you.
happening is these robocallers, I get calls from the
I mean,
415 area code all the time. And I'm like,
they spoof
if
you,
you're
yeah.
not in my phone as a contact, then I don't know you. So I'm not answering,
Mhm.
right? And it's like trying to mimic my number and all that stuff. So a lot of that stuff is robocalls. But like, let's address like just something I think that's important to talk about, right? Is like, maybe this is just a stat for millennials, but it's something like 80% of people would rather text you than leave a voicemail because they just
Mhm.
people don't want to talk, right? And that's another thing, Josh, I don't know how much you've been kind of advocating for your clients to do this, but it's like an easy way to stand out in that Google business profile, like that snack pack right there, is to have your little link for either your Service Titan booking page, your Sarah booking page, your House Call Pro, so that they can book online. Because I'm telling you, the companies that are doing that now, right, they're going to win all the early adopter millennials who are going on and, they just got their house and they want to book services. Like if you have that there, number one, you're going to stand out because everybody else has one, maybe two dots because they've got, the website. And then I think the other one is like
Directions.
or message, right?
Your
But if you can
message.
be that one with the third dot that says book, I can't tell you how much of the
Well,
market you're going to,
That gets a really nice, like if you integrate it
Oh.
with the actual reserve with Google thing,
Yeah.
it's like this big blue button. It's huge.
Yeah.
It says book online, and it's absolutely like stands out. Like it's a big, like Google obviously realizes people want to book online, so they're going to try to
Oh,
show
yeah.
those businesses up at the top that has a big old button. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
it's
so-
absolutely something that's huge.
And so that big blue one is on their Google business profile when somebody like Googles your name. But I'm talking about just in the search results, you get those three little medallions like right next to your name, right? It's book is usually the first one there. And you will automatically, like visually, people will just gravitate towards yours because they're like, oh, that's different, right? And so I think it's just, there's so much power in doing that. And like, again, if you have any of those services, there are booking links that you can put in there, right? And so making that easier, I think, is such an important piece. Or making your main line number text friendly is another one too. And just have people kind of managing that. And there's so many of these different like unified inbox, systems and software that you can be using to manage your Facebook chats and your Google chats and your Apple messages and all that in one place. Like you just kind of got to get there so that you can respond to that. I know the majority, like or a good portion of that is spammy, crap, but like, every once in a while, to be somebody that wants a $16,000 or $30,000 system. So you got to ask yourself, like, is it worth it?
You know what I found, Chris? So like, I mean, we use Go High Level. We've white labeled it.
Yeah,
We built our own. There's
we do
Chirp,
too.
There's
Yep.
Podium. There's a bunch of. I actually got someone emailed me yesterday about every chat or something like that. But
Yeah.
anyways, I have clients that they struggle having someone manage that still.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, again, we're talking about simplicity.
Yeah.
The
Manage what?
Manage the text messages coming
Yeah.
in, the messages from the Facebook chats and some of that stuff. They all come to like a centralized inbox, and they still struggle managing that because they're CSRs. They're originally hired to answer the phone, right?
Yeah.
So then they
Mhm.
try to delegate another inbox to somebody, and it becomes a struggle. They treat that as kind of like a secondary thing. Like that's not really
yeah.
their primary responsibility. So stuff still goes unanswered. So you think texting is like, oh, cool, I'm a customer, I could text this business, I'm going to get answers really quick.
Yeah.
And it's funny that the business
That's a
that
good
I think of that I use the most, I use them every week. It's called Stretch Lab. And it's mostly
Mhm.
just to help with, it's like assisted stretching.
Nice.
And I can text them anytime within 10 minutes. I get a text back. I can book my appointment. I never have to pick up the phone. I don't even have to book online. I literally just say, hey, what do you got open on Saturday? and they text me back with times and my preferred person. And it's literally every time I do, I'm like, man, I love this business. Like, it's just
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But they built their business around the customer that is reaching out to them. It's not,
I will tell you that. So we were guilty of this, not necessarily this exact same thing, but it was a thing where we had 3 different people who had access to the text messaging, and there wasn't a clearly defined role of this is your job to respond to this text message. Everybody just thought that the other person was doing it. And so then it would just get the ball would get dropped. And so when you do implement text messaging, then just making sure that you say, all right, so this is your job to respond to every one of these text messages. And that's your top priority, is to do this. And so then there's the ability to hold someone accountable.
It always goes back to being simple. It's a simple solution, maybe not a simple problem, but it's a simple solution. And that's why we're talking about simple stuff here, because the simple stuff, and I always remember this, Chris, I don't know if you ever run into Matt Tyner. You ever?
That name sounds familiar.
Yeah. He used to be at Williams Comfort Air and their multiple brand company. He's now at Bone Dry Roofing, which is like a $200 million roofing company. He's their CMO.
Okay, yeah.
Big service site user. We've had him on the show. Extremely smart guy. He told me once, because I asked him a year and a half ago, because all this ChatGPT was coming out. I'm like, what is $100 million brand doing with AI? And he's like, you know what? I said, we're keeping an eye on it, but we're doing the simple things extremely well. That's what he told me. I always remember exactly how he said it, because if $100 million brand is doing that, the $1 million brand should be doing the same thing. Just do I mean, Tersh and I are as guilty as anyone. You're probably very similar, since you're in the digital realm of all the shiny tools and objects, and doing demos that you probably should be kicking down the line 6 months.
Or 18.
But it really is provide great service, keep making sure that journey is better, revisit that, just make sure your team's got what they need, just do the simple things really, really well, and your business will flourish in any economy, because people want great service. They want to make it simple. That's why Amazon is always, it's like 2 clicks and I can freaking have something at my door in a couple hours. It's insane how simple that is. But they had to work at reducing the flow of everything to get to 2 clicks. And now we don't say we're going to shop online. We go Amazon it or whatever.
The crazy thing is that at one point they made it so simple that a good friend of mine, his son, who was about, Chris, your children's age, ordered a whole bunch of stuff off of their Amazon account because it was 1 click, no verification. Click. They're like, oh yeah, I want that Pokemon thing. I want that little Lego set. I want this. It was like $500 worth of stuff.
Whoa.
The kid thought that they were just putting it like I want, like a wish basket.
Yeah.
They purchased it. Buy now.
That's fun. Well, I think, and Tersh just kind of goes back to like what we talked about on my podcast, right? About the difference between AI and automation. And the problem is like everybody is so eager to automate and use AI that they're literally wasting hours trying to figure this out so that they can like save time. And it's like, well, I argue, and this is one of my mentors, he was talking about this, right? Like he likened this back to when like the I think it's called the IVR, the phone systems came out where you could press 1 and talk to sales, press 2 and talk to Sirius. Yeah. And like everybody was like, oh my God, this is going to save us so much time and energy and all that stuff. And I think there's a study done that like the businesses that stayed away from that and actually still connected with their customers actually saw better retention and more like, lifetime value from their customers, because they were willing to take that time to actually connect instead of shoving them into a phone tree. Who hates I hate a phone tree. Like if I'm calling, I want to connect with somebody. And I always feel like, am I pressing the right number? Am I going to the right department? Am I going to get my questions answered? And so Josh, I think to your point, like and this is how I built my agency, is like, be easy to do business with, right? Like when I sign a new client, right? It's like, hey, here it is. Pay the invoice. Let me connect to your Google business profile. We'll take it from here, right? And then we'll drip in the other things. Like so many agencies in our space, right? They're like, fill out this form about your brand identity and all this. Like they just add so much like friction to the whole process that, you know, they're sitting there wondering like, did I make the right decision? Like, are these guys even capable? It seems like I'm doing all the work kind of thing, right? So it's like just getting back to that simple basis, like just be easy to do business with, right? Like
True.
accept all the major credit cards, take a check, take cash, take financing. Don't tell me that I gotta sell it from some specific account, right? Because you want to avoid paying taxes. Like that's just sketchy and weird. Like just be straightforward about what you're doing and just make it really easy to do business.
Just make it easy and accept Bitcoin. I mean, come on. Like
Yeah.
who doesn't have a Bitcoin wallet these days?
Right? Yeah. Sheesh.
I actually saw a Facebook post about that within the last week of someone like, hey, does anyone accept Bitcoin? Like, what do you guys do for that?
I saw that too.
Yeah, I think I tagged you in it.
Yeah, you did.
Man, ridiculous.
Thanks.
So let's, Chris, real quick. So we did the intro. Your really, really, really long intro that you did. We told you to keep it short. But talk about your podcast real quick, so people that want to learn more and want to dive deeper into some of these topics, they can learn more.
Yeah, cool. No, I appreciate that. So I started a podcast just like any other person that starts a podcast. And I'm like, I'm going to interview, you know, leading experts, this, that, and the other thing. And so the podcast is just the same name as my marketing agency, which is Reputation Igniter. You can find it by going to reputationigniter.com, click on the podcast button up there. If that's been implemented yet, I got to check my web guy. But the episodes are really, you can go to our YouTube channel, which is just at Reputation Igniter, and all our YouTube videos are up there too. So I think we're launching on like 22 different podcast platforms later this week. So we'll be on all the stuff that you care about. Long story short on that one, sorry, is that like everybody's doing the interviewing, all the leading experts, not faulting you guys. But what I want to do is kind of take a different twist on that. So I'm trying to make the majority of who I'm actually interviewing on there is you. Like, listener. I'm talking to you as a listener, right? As the HVAC business owner themselves, really really tapping into your zone of genius, because every single one of you guys has something in your business that you just obsess about, you geek about, you wake up at 3 a.m. about, you know, other than the payroll that you got to pay, right? The other thing is like,
that's the one that keeps you awake till
that's the one that keeps you,
not the one that wakes you up excited.
Yeah, exactly. And so the focus has just been on really drawing out that zone of genius. And don't, you know, that being said, like I still have sprinkling of amazing, incredible leaders in the industry. Like, Tersh, you're kind of like double dipping because you own an HVAC business, but then you're also kind of like, you know, doing some other cool stuff, right? So,
Jack of
but
all
that's
trades, master of none. I wouldn't call it an expert.
There you go. So it's people like you telling their story, what they're doing and how they're getting through, you know, challenges and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully it's just something relatable and there's utility in it. And the focus is just making our industry better. And I always say on the podcast, like I want the greatest barrier to entry into our industry to be the level of professionalism with which you operate your business. So I'm just trying to give you guys tips, tricks from, you know, your cohorts in the industry all across the country in terms of what they're doing to find success. So, yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. Honestly, some of our best conversations come from contractors because that's our roots. You know, we obviously do some different stuff now, but it's so those conversations flow so smoothly because it's like we just speak like we're just so used to the same stuff, but it's a great conversation to have. And there literally is innovation everywhere. We all look at, and again, I feel like every time we have an episode, it's like Tommy Mello's name gets mentioned, but there's always there's very few of them, but there's a lot of innovation happening at the ground level that even a $20 million company can learn from someone at $2 million because they're doing something.
I have a friend of mine that
marketing approach.
I have a friend of mine that we text all the time. We only see each other probably once a year at an expo at AHR or something. But he was texting me the other day and he was like, man, I dove into your list of automations, right? And that like really reignited my just super passion that I have with Google Sheets. And so like he sends me these pictures and links to his Google Sheets. And I'm like, bro, these things are like CRM like level. Like you have so many different pages and clicks and stuff. And he was like, yeah, I know, but like all you have to do is put the information right here and it just goes everywhere. And I was like, that's cool, dude. I mean, that's obviously a rabbit hole, but it's cool that you've done it and you figured it out and you're not relying on someone else to, you know, do that for you.
Did you tell him you're welcome?
Yeah, right.
No, not at all.
You're
Well,
welcome
the thing-
for spending the next 20 hours of your life doing Google Sheets.
Right. Yeah. But the thing about it is like, he was working out a pricing calculator. Basically, he wanted to make sure that every
wow.
job that he did was profitable. And sure, you can look at your P&Ls and stuff like that. That's kind of like a month or 15 days after the fact. Whereas he wanted to job cost every single job the moment, like before it even hit the invoice type thing. And he was like, I just started doing this and I figured this formula out and I just did it. And I was like, that's what I'm talking about.
It's crazy
So
the things that we spend, because we always bounce around as entrepreneurs, and now all three of us have a podcast. We all bounce around between things. I find that my greatest joy comes from like when I'm able to focus on something for like an hour or two, like really focus like deeply on something. Like, man, it was like it feels good, even though of course we don't actually set aside the time needed to do it again until a month or two later. But it feels good. Like I did that this morning. Actually, we didn't have anything early in the morning. I was like digging into stuff that the team needed. I'm really digging. I'm like, it's kind of fun to like.
You also
dig
did
in
it
and find the
last
answers.
night at like 1 o'clock
did.
in the morning. You were messaging me and my phone, I have to put it clear across the room or else I'll wake up and start messing with it. And I hear it going off and it's like, oh, that's Josh's notification ringtone. And I was like, all right, he won't do it again.
I don't even know if my
Did he did
my
it again?
ringtone
And I'm
is
like,
on your phone.
Bruh.
That's what
It's
I gotta do. I gotta get
drama.
a
This
separate
is-
ringtone for you. So that way, that way, okay, we definitely don't have to answer that.
Chris,
Love
man,
it.
we
Chris-
appreciate hanging out with you. It's been a great conversation. I've been a fly on the wall most of it, but I have been taking notes. I got 3 pages of notes I've been writing down over here.
Whoa.
So yeah, that's what I do. But I really appreciate you hanging out with us, and anybody that's interested in Reputation Igniter, don't hesitate to reach out to Chris. And also check out his podcast. So with that being said, Chris, you want to say anything before we close up?
Oh, no, thanks you guys for
Okay, cool.
letting
That's
us on. Yeah, thanks for letting us on. I mean, if anybody wants to email me, it's just chris@reputationigniter.com. I also did kind of package up a couple of goodies for anybody that's listening that wants to dial into it. You go to gbprecipe.com because I feel like that's kind of what we've been talking about. And if anybody wants to get any good insights there, I've put some stuff in there for you guys, just as a thank you for you guys having me come on, and just some of my best stuff, my brain stuff, with some visuals. I'm a big like Loom guy. Like I run my whole business off of Loom. So just giving you some things that you can kind of execute in your business to just help you kind of figure out some stuff and sort it out. So just GBP for those golf, Bravo Papa recipe.com for you military types. So yeah, I just appreciate you guys. Thanks for all you do for our industry, man. I just, again, I now that I'm on the end of like, or on the side of production, I just realized how much you guys are putting into what you're doing to bring, to level up our industry. So thanks again for doing that, guys. It takes a lot. So
it's our pleasure. And if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Chris, reach out to Josh or myself. Don't reach out to me about digital marketing because I'm just going to send them to these two guys. But until we talk again next week, I hope you have a wonderful and safe week, and we'll see you later.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Service Business Mastery. Now that you are equipped with essential business advice from this impactful conversation, you are one step closer to becoming the successful owner of your dreams. If this episode has been helpful to your business journey, don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and share it with other owners as well. Visit servicebusinessmastery.com to learn more.